There's a new stud in town. What'd you hear about him? Well, they said that he's big and strong and good looking.
Gotta get your act together.
Harder, stronger.
Hairy, sweaty, macho.
Real physical strength. He'll never stop.
Welcome to the Work in Progress podcast. I'm Michael D. Catherwood, and I'm here to host a show for you. I want to talk about a couple things that have come up in my life. I've always found, like, whether I was on the radio or whether it was a podcast of some sort, or if I was being interviewed on TV or on the radio or whatnot, things that organically come from my actual life tend to be the best things to talk about. So here we go. First things first. I was in Europe for Christmas and New Year's. I was in Slovakia, I was in Austria, I was in France. It was amazing. It was really great. Amazing cultures, amazing people. I got to spend time with my in-laws and I like them very much. I love them. So everything was cool. Something happened to me in the Vienna, Austria airport. My flight was getting ready to board and I'm group 3, my wife, my daughter, and I. We're flying to Paris. It's like a puddle jumper type flight. It's just a quick one. But we're group 3, so I know I have a little time. And now I have to go to the bathroom. And I have to go to the bathroom bad. And it's the type of high stress bathroom use. I'm not going to get too descriptive. I'm working on not being gross. It was the complicated form of using the restroom. I run to the men's bathroom. I get in there and I open the door. I wait for the stall to be open. And it's like a closet. It's like a totally enclosed around me. I get in there and there's 2 exactly similar toilet looking things. One's a bidet, one's a toilet. Now I have to do the dookie. I don't speak a lick of German and there's signs. I don't know which one's the bidet. It's not like other bidets I've seen in Scandinavia where like it's like a cord that comes out and you can, oh no, this is just, they look exactly the same. Now I'm faced with a real problem here because if I choose wrong, that would be really, really, really bad because I would have applied waste products into a bidet where there is no flushing mechanism or connection to sewage. So using that option seems like the worst. I, for some reason, thought they wouldn't put the bidet on the right. They would put that as your first choice. And somehow, even though you would use them in that order, I figured the bidet was on the left. I go and I use the toilet on the right. It turns out to be the toilet. It was awesome. There were 2, by the way, they're 2 exactly the same looking kind of pieces of machinery and then 2 exact similar buttons and then signs above them in German. I think if I was at, Berlin Airport or London Heathrow or Charles de Gaulle in Paris, of course there would have been numerous languages. It was just German. So I was really stuck. I chose correctly. Because I chose correctly, I was feeling celebratory. Now I'm an American and I'm very proud to be an American. I've always looked negatively at the bidet because it seemed like foo-foo, silly, pretentious European nonsense. But I said, you just had a big victory, buddy. Why don't you go ahead, give this a shot? And I did my normal wrap-up routine that comes with that type of restroom use. Went over with my pants still around my knees and my chones, same thing. And I used a bidet. Well, it changed my whole view on everything. The rest of the flight, I felt cleaner head to toe. I felt amazing. It was amazing. And as I was thinking on the flight, if there was poo-poo of any amount, even a teeny amount, on any other part of my body other than the rectum, I would not tolerate just a dry piece of paper to clean it. I would demand you find me soap and lots of water and towels because I have poo-poo on my skin. I mean, imagine, if you will, I don't want to get too gross, but imagine, if you will, even if it was like a fleck right here, someone handed you a paper towel or some toilet paper, and they're like, you're good. You'd be like, no, I'm not good. You need some serious attention. So my point being is like a really random occurrence where I was being open-minded and I broadened my horizons, really changed my view on everything, and I'm now fully of the bidet support. That's all. The next thing I want to talk about is fiber, because I had my boy Q-Tip on Patreon. Shout out to Q-Tip. He always asked really good questions. He asked if I could maybe touch on fiber and how it applies into calculating your macros, and then what it's upside, downside of the whole thing. And I think it's very important. I would put it right behind protein. Well, fiber is interesting because it technically it's not necessary, and carnivore practitioners have shown that. You can live your life without any fiber and just have diarrhea and adjust your stomach acids, and your digestive tract and whatnot will adjust to it. I don't know if that's optimal. And there is a pretty large list of very kind of identifiable, ample, and conclusive scientific reasons why you would want to have a good bolus of fiber in your diet. For one, it lowers blood sugar naturally, like healthy fats or like some good protein. It also keeps you really full, right behind protein. When it comes to gram for gram, calorie for calorie, fiber is great because it adds to food volume. So you're getting more bang for your buck. Let's say something's 160 calories and it's pure carbs. If you have 40 grams of a fibrous carb, something like beans, legumes, or a fiber powder, sweet potato or something like that, or a big salad. If it was 140 calories with at the very least 10 to 15 grams of fiber out of those 40 total grams of carbs, and if you compared that to something like bread, not a non-fibrous bread, or pasta or rice or something like that, 140 calories of it, 40 grams, that added fiber is going to fill up your stomach a lot more, and it's a lot slower to digest, and that is exactly what you're looking for when you're trying to diet. More bang for your buck. Now, there's a very narrow category of people who would be looking to avoid that. Professional physique competitors and bodybuilders in a gaining phase. I've talked about it with me personally. When I'm looking to put on some muscle, I'm mostly eating rice as my carb source with a little fruit. When I'm looking to lean out, as I am right now at the beginning of the year, I'm going to get shredded, no rice, all fibrous fruits, fibrous vegetables, and a limited amount of potatoes, sweet potatoes, because I want to get as much caloric bang for my buck. I want to fill my stomach up as much as possible with the least amount of calories as possible. So really highlighting fiber and protein. So that's the way you got to look at fiber. It is incredibly healthy. It does help with natural and high functioning digestion and food assimilation. Now, there is a point where more is not better. Absolutely. Same with any kind of component of food that you put in your mouth. Someone who's a regular sized man, 170 pounds, a regular sized woman, 155 pounds, there's no real benefit to going above, for men, 30 grams of fiber, and there's no real benefit for women going over 20 grams. It's just going to end up giving you digestive problems. It's going to really kind of junk up the digestion of other things that you eat. It will compromise the ability for you to digest certainly amino acids and proteins. A lot of vegans, even very successful vegan athletes, they often talk about having to manage that, having to deal with that. Non-competitive athletes or non-focused kind of vegans who are just eating vegan, let's say, for purely ethical reasons, which is beautiful. This isn't said as a pejorative. I'm just saying a lot of times, certainly like a lot of my old friends, a lot from like the punk rock scene and stuff back in the day, a lot of them would just have nothing but the downside because they wouldn't manage that. They were constantly eating their favorite vegan foods because they were vegan. And this was an extraordinarily high amount of fiber in comparison to the amount of food overall that they were eating. So they would have lots, an insane cartoonish amount of visits to the bathroom. And then they were also compromising the amount of amino acids and things that they were digesting and utilizing from the foods that they ate. Think of things like beans and seeds and nuts, all forms of legumes. If you're eating lots of that, a lot of those things are very high in protein. That's great, but you're not getting, let's say this Impossible Burger has 20 something grams of protein. You're really getting about 8 to 12 because that extraordinary amount of fiber that you have in that patty, and then also with everything else that you're eating with it, is going to compromise the ability for your gut to utilize that and digest it properly. So that's my kind of Reader's Digest breakdown of fiber. It's a good thing. You want to look for it, especially when looking to diet. But there's a limit to where it becomes beneficial and where it becomes actually counterproductive. It's not something that you can say, this is the amount you should eat, but you should be looking to get at least 15 to 20 grams of fiber in a day. That's a baseline minimum. Anything above that to where you cross the line to where it becomes counterproductive, I can't say, but you'll know. That's the easier part. Protein comes a little bit harder. A lot of times you don't know if you've gone overboard. It's very hard to go overboard with protein, but you can. You start to maybe somewhere down the line, you get like really noticeably bad breath, but in a unique way. It's a sign like maybe you can back off like that, because there is going to be renal issues that can come up if you're getting way too much protein. But there is limits, right? It's very hard to say. A lot of it has to do with your overall size, your lifestyle, things like that. Very, very similar to protein. I can't sit here and say like 1 gram of pound of body weight overall. That's what, well, no, not if you're mostly sedentary, or if you train once or twice a week, or if you don't carry a lot of muscle, or if you're incredibly obese. And I have a 300-pound client that's not very muscular. It's not an offensive lineman. He's just 300 pounds. I don't want him eating 300 grams of protein. So it's impossible to kind of make these very clear, digestible, pardon the pun, lines of where you should or shouldn't cut off your protein, your fiber, but you need a good amount of both. Okay. Again, I will point out clearly it's not essential like other things are. There's essential amino acids, or AKA proteins. There's essential fats, fatty acids. But there's no essential fiber. You can survive and live. I'm not sure you're going to thrive without any fiber, but you can get past it. So, all you carnivores out there, don't light up my social media, because I know that that's coming. I haven't had any, I've been eating nothing but ribeye for 6 months and I'm fine. Like, fine. Okay. I'm not saying you couldn't be. I think everyone, by and large, if I were to make a blanket statement when it comes to health, would be a lot better off if they had a good chunk, a good bolus of fiber with their daily intake. All right. I am available for coaching. I want to take you on as a client if you're looking for assistance, which can be super, super helpful when you're trying to make that change with your physique or your performance. I know what I'm talking about, and I can clearly do all my training and programming on my own. I could diet and train myself to be in great shape, but I have a coach for a reason, because it's really, really helpful keeping you accountable during those times that you're really struggling in this marathon that is not a sprint. It's actually, as my friend David Nurse, shout out to David Nurse, says, it's a marathon that's comprised of lots of little sprints, but it's not a 100-meter dash. This is an ongoing thing. And when you have that kind of prolonged activity where you have to be focused, it's really, really helpful to have a good coach. So I'm available if you're in the market. Check out my Patreon. I'll put my link in the show notes below if you're interested in that, and I would love to help you out. And in this crazy mixed up world that makes you think that nobody cares, remember, I do. Be good.